Hey, good morning. This is Jamie with Stonemeyer Games. Today is June 10th, 2020. Last week was our big e-newsletter announcement, although not a particularly big one. And I do actually have something to share from that announcement. Um, Joe dropped by. I haven't seen my coworker Joe in months now because of self-isolation. And he dropped by the other day to drop off some samples that he's been receiving. Because whenever Panda sends us a sample of a new product, Joe gets it first and does a thorough review of it. And then in normal times, he would pass it on to me to do a review of it. But that isn't possible right now. So he's just doing all those reviews. And one of the things that he got that I talked about last week was the Scythe Complete Rulebook. And I actually have an early copy of it here that I wanted to kind of show you how big it is. So this is what it looks like with the spiral binding, and it feels. So we're using that special paper that we use in Wingspan in our rulebooks now, and I've never felt this much of it in one place because it's 136 pages, and it feels amazing to flip through this to have that nice texture in here. Again, we chose the spiral binding because you can flip it around to one page and just let it sit on the table like that. I have decided to go ahead and make a hardcover version in more limited quantities than the spiral bound. I don't know if they'll be available at the same time, but we do have both in production now, and this version should be available in a month or two, followed by the hardcover version. So yeah, thank you for your support of that and your feedback about what you wanted, if you wanted it at all, and thank you to Matt and Brittany for compiling this from all the different rules from all the different Scythe products that we have. I'm loving it. It's nice to be able to actually have it in my hands and to feel it. I'm amazed that the Scythe world is this big. Pretty incredible. And that's thanks to you. We have some people joining us today. Hey, Michael, Cody, Chris, Tony. Lots of good mornings here. As always, I am happy to answer any questions that you have. I have a variety of random topics to cover today. But I'm happy to answer any of your questions that you have. But yeah, it looks like Jeremy from Man vs. Meeple is here today. Yeah, Jeremy. I loved your chat yesterday about it was a game by the designer of Tzolk'in, another T letter game, and Jeremy did a little discussion about that on Man vs. Meeple the other day. Tzolk'in is one of my favorite games, so any video that's like adjacent to Tzolk'in or about the Tzolk'in designer, I am fascinated by that and want to know more. Let's see. Sorry, a little hair in my mouth. That's what you get from owning two cats. Oregon says, in general terms, to avoid disparagement, what are examples of good and bad ways that you see other publishers interacting with game designers? Or did you interact with any publishers before you became one yourself? I did interact with a few. I somewhat misguidedly, I reached out to several publishers when I was working on viticulture to get feedback about viticulture and how to publish the best possible game and do a good job on Kickstarter. I say misguided because I don't think I was reaching out in private when nowadays I know how much I like people to reach out to me in public and ask for public advice so that feedback and those questions can benefit more than just one person. So I think that's one of the big things, Oregon. There could be a whole blog post about this question, but the big thing to me is if you have a question for a publisher. Actually, no, you're asking about how publishers interact with game designers the other way. So not how game designers reach out to publishers. How publishers interact with game designers. The main thing I would say, or one thing that comes to mind, I'll just throw out one thing, is speed of response. If you're a publisher and you're openly accepting submissions, I think it is responsible to respond to those submissions in a fairly regular manner. Within a few weeks, maybe. At least for the initial contact. I know it can take longer to actually play a prototype and get that to the table, but yeah, if you're actively accepting submissions, I think that's pretty key. In contrast, for example, Stonemeyer Games right now is not actively accepting submissions. Well, I just got a ton of spam emails all at once, just a ton of them in my inbox. Very odd. Big spam day. Stonemeyer Games right now is not actively accepting submissions because we cannot uphold that. We know that we do not have the capacity right now to respond in a timely manner, and we also know that we don't have the room in our schedule over the next 3 years to publish another game. So we're not actively accepting submissions. So that's one little thing there. That's a much bigger question. Oregon also says, how did your observations of other publishers' interactions influence the way that Stonemaier interacts with game designers besides you? Yeah, some of those original times where I reached out to other publishers and said, hey, what do you think about this game? Not because I wanted them to publish it, because I wanted feedback on it. Um, some of them didn't reply at all, understandably so. Like I was contacting them in public, a complete stranger, asking them for to help me, even though I'd never interacted with them before. And some of them were very kind of reached out to me. One that stands out was Patrick Nickel, then of Crash Games. Patrick's no longer in the industry. But Patrick was so kind to actually respond to me. Like he really didn't need to at all, but he responded to me. He even said that he would that I could send him a copy of Viticulture, and a very early copy, to playtest, which just astounds me, knowing how much time it takes to run a game company, and that Patrick was willing to offer his time in that way. I've always been astounded by that act of generosity from Patrick, and I'm forever grateful for it. So I don't expect that of any publisher. I would hope that no one would expect that of me, but it was a true act of kindness and generosity in a time when it wasn't necessary. Douglas says, any news about the next expansion for Wingspan or Tapestry? The Tapestry expansion will be next, followed by the Wingspan expansion. So that's the news I'll share with you today. I know that's hardly any news, but that's what I'll share with you. Nigel says, is the new game teased one that you've designed? So I haven't really talked about this game, Nigel. I'm not going to answer questions about it, but I did say last week, this is information that's out there, I did say last week that I am not the designer of the one game that we'll be releasing in 2020. And what Nigel's referring to is that I teased an obfuscated version of the box art for that game on Instagram yesterday. So if you go to Instagram at Jamie Stegmaier, you can see what that you can see. By obfuscated, I mean it's kind of pixelated. It's not the actual box art, it's just a pixelated version of it. And you can guess in the comments as to what you're seeing in that image. There are some very funny comments from people who contributed what they thought they were looking at on that box. Ilya says, I noticed your Kickstarter-backed projects are private. Any reason for that? I would love to see what you backed in the past. My Kickstarter-backed projects are private. Interesting. They shouldn't be private. Yeah, they actually shouldn't be. I think I publicly... my intention is to publicly share that. So I will make a note about that and look at it after the video. That isn't meant to be private information. Yeah. Kickstarter-backed projects. Thank you for letting me know about that. I wonder if it's a setting that changed or one that I unintentionally clicked. But I have a bunch of people I think that follow me on Kickstarter and see what I back, and they get notifications whenever I back something, or at least they should. My hope is that they will. So I wonder if I've accidentally turned that off. I'll go check on that. Thank you for letting me know. Nathan says, did I see the Dice Tower chat on Sunday with Eric Lang? I thought it was really good and gave me a lot of insights. I did not see that, Nathan, but I appreciate the recommendation. Yeah. Lise says, are you going to tell us something about the new Stonemaier game today? No, I'm not going to tell you anything about that game today, other than that I am starting to tease it on Instagram. Very broad, vague hints about it on Instagram. In early July is when I'll start to really actively share with you the name of it and other information. But who knows? On these live casts, I slip up all the time, so you might hear me say something that I really don't mean to. Carol says, do you think you will start a little in-person gaming soon? If so, what do you want to play first? I mean, I'm very lucky to live with my girlfriend Megan. So we have been doing in-person gaming, of course. We played Tang Garden a number of times over the past weekend and really enjoyed it. So I have had that. I'm very lucky to have that outlet for my love of gaming and her love of gaming too. But with our regular game group, I am really looking forward to getting back together with them. I don't know when that will be though. I doubt it will be soon. But when it happens, what do I want to play first? I want to play Pax Pamir, I want to play Mandala, and I want to play The King of Siam. Those are 3 on the list, just off the top of my head. Jeremy says, what's my favorite heavy or long 3 hours or more game? That's a category that is not really on my favorites list, honestly. Like when a game lasts more than 2.5, 3 hours, it's a little too long for my attention span, even if it's a really great game. There's only one exception to that, and that is Time Stories. I am happy to sit down for 4 hours and play through a full run through of Time Stories, a Time Stories module. I'll come back to questions in a second. Let me see real quick. Oh, I have been playtesting a new game against myself, which is it relates to Carol's question about playing in person with other people. I haven't ever really done that before. I've always, I want to see how other humans react to my game. But this one game is one that I can actually play against myself to learn a little bit about the game, and it's actually worked out pretty well. I have it on my desk right here. I'm not going to show it to you because it would be a major spoiler. I don't even know if the game will come to life, but it's something I've been doing lately, just trying. I've been playing two-player games against myself in this with this game I've been playtesting. Um, what else have I been doing? Stonemaier games related. Uh, we have over the last 10, 14 days or so, we've been working on a pretty major company statement related to Black Lives Matter. We didn't want to, while we do see the urgency of what's happening, we didn't want to rush into something. We wanted to make a statement and make a declaration of action that would result in lasting change. And so it's required quite a bit of thought, quite a bit of talking with our shareholders and people who are close to the company to make sure we are doing all that we can to make a positive difference for Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And so I'm hoping that tomorrow on the Stonemaier Games blog, you will see a major statement and a declaration of action about what we're doing. So in case you're curious about that, why we haven't made such a major statement, that's why you will see it tomorrow on the blog, or I'm hoping that you see it tomorrow on the blog if it's ready. Rod says, Rod has a very nice comment about my engagement. He says he's been working on a development of his own game for more than a year now, and my work has been an inspiration for me. When I feel like quitting, I just go to your blog or videos for inspiration. Well, Rod, thank you so much. That means a lot to me. I do the same for other content creators. Whenever I'm stuck, I will go watch a video about a game or read a blog post, read a review about someone who's enthusiastic about a certain game, maybe the genre that I'm working on, and that really energizes me. I love that there's so many different content creators out there who do that for me, even though they're not doing it for me. Grant says something nice about Joe, my coworker Joe, who handles our replacement parts team. I agree. Joe's doing a great job with that. I'm glad we were able to help you with that, Grant. Brian says Wingspan was such a huge hit for Stonemaier Games and for Elizabeth. Still is a huge hit. Did she and you consider publishing Mary Poses? You just said that you didn't have a spot in your calendar. Is that why Stonemaier Games didn't publish it? No, we reviewed Mary Poses. Elizabeth was kind enough to send it to us for consideration, not necessarily to submit it to us, but to share it with us, and we played it a few times. And I thought it was a great, beautiful game. The one thing that I didn't see all that much in it was a big sense, a ramping up of progression, a sense of progression in the game. And I was interested in adding that to the game and working with her to develop it to add that sense of progression. Uh, but but I kind of recognized that that wasn't really what she was going for in the game. And I even asked her, I said, Elizabeth, like, we're open to publishing this. I think it has the potential to be an amazing medium weight Euro game. Currently, it is an amazing lightweight Euro game. Do you want it to be a lightweight Euro game or a medium weight Euro game? And she said lightweight. And I totally respect that. And I think she had another great publisher in mind. And so, and we're also happy, like, we don't want our designers to be pigeonholed as Stonemaier Games designers. We want them to have a full, robust life in the industry with a number of different publishing partners. So I'm looking forward to playing Mary Pose as a gamer, but in the end, it wasn't it wasn't the perfect fit for Stonemaier, and I think it was the right fit for Elizabeth to work with another publisher on it. In this case, AEG is that publisher. Lise says, great to see that you like playing on Board Game Arena during these COVID times. She says that older games get a complete revival on that platform. Are you thinking about getting one of your games on Board Game Arena, or are we only doing games with apps? Yeah, I'm fairly new to Board Game Arena, but I really have been loving it. It's been really helpful for me to play some of the medium weight Euro games that I love in these times where that's very tough to play over like Zoom. And so, am I thinking about getting our games on there? I would love to, but our games are tied up. Most of our games are tied up in digital contracts with other publishers, so with other developers. So that isn't an option for many of them unless I get permission from those digital developers. Ali says, what published game do you wish you published? Like a game published by another company. And there are quite a few of them. I have a top 10 list about that. Maybe Cody can find that. That's 10 games that I think the phrasing is the 10 games I think we would have published, the Stonemaier games would have published. A couple off the top of my head are Tzolk'in and Ra are two near the top there. Sep has a nice comment. He said, well, I'll just read it here because it's very nice. He says, it just popped in to thank you for sharing so much information about crowdfunding. A couple of years ago, I was able to run a Kickstarter successfully. Congratulations on that, Sep. I was able to do great research and planning due to your shared experience. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm glad to hear that. Like, that's one of the reasons that I started writing about Kickstarter back in 2012, because there wasn't really a great resource at the time for creators like me, or really any Kickstarter creators. There really were not many resources at all. So I know there's a great body of work now from people who have added to that and added their thoughts, but I'm glad my blog is there for people who want it, and my book is there as well. Mario says, is the box the same size as the tapestry box? You'll find out he's referring to our new game. You'll find that out in July, Mario. Alexandra says, how do you pick the reviewers you work with? Do they approach you or do you get in touch with them? Yeah, so we have, I have a blog post about this. I'll try to find it real quick. Stonemaier, it's our current approach to board game reviewers and content creators. So basically, we have a form that board game reviewers and content creators can fill out. Oh, I don't think I can post it right now. But yeah, if you search Stonemaier Games for current approach to board game reviewers, you can see it. It's basically they can read those instructions and fill out a form, and we send them every now and then. Sometimes once a week, sometimes once a month. It kind of varies. I'll send out notification to a bunch of reviewers about a specific game and say, hey, if you want this game, here is a steep discount on that game. So they do have to pay for like shipping and basically the cost of manufacturing the game, but it's a huge discount, and then they are expected to review it or create substantial content for it within 2 months on their platform. Sarah says, have I played Fujikoro Deluxe? I have not played it yet. No, but I really need to. I'm glad you loved it, Sarah. Sonia says, what do I think about the Nemesis lockdown on Kickstarter? Or it's not a lockdown, it's Nemesis lockdown on Kickstarter. I'm amazed. It's doing amazingly well. Nemesis is a very popular game. I was maybe a little confused as to the differences between it and the core game, and what people think about it compared to the core game. But I'm glad to see it's doing so well. People seem very excited about it. I haven't backed it myself, though. Sa says, can I share a little information about Stonemaier Games for 2020? Yeah, we have I'll start talking about our new game for 2020 in about a month, and then we have the Tapestry expansion coming out after that. And in there will be the Scythe complete rulebook. This is the rulebook of all Scythe information, the Internet of Scythe in one book. And hopefully the Wingspan Oceania expansion. I don't exactly know yet if it will make it in time, but it's gonna be pretty close. I'm going to keep going with questions for a minute. I do have some other random topics, but I'll keep going with questions. James says he finally managed to get Wingspan, and he's loving it. And after playing it, he wishes there was one more round. When playtesting the game, did you find that? No, we actually found that we found that if you play an extra round, you have a significantly greater chance of just filling up your entire mat and not even having other places to play birds, which cuts out an entire action of the game, which is a problem. So we're pretty happy with the number of rounds in the game. But people have house ruled that and played another round. We totally respect house rules if it makes the experience more fun for you. Oh, and James also asked about from game design perspective, how do we find balance? And really, it's playtesting. A lot of blind playtesting, data, and anecdotal evidence to support or change what we think is right for the game. Sonia says, I just got Gugong yesterday. What do I think about it? I absolutely love the bribe mechanism in Gugong. In Gugong, for those who don't know, and I have a video about this too, Sonia. In Gugong, it's essentially worker placement in that you are placing it's not a worker, it's a card, but it's essentially a worker. You're placing it on the board in a place where there's already a card, and you are picking up the card that was there. And the value of the card you place, with a few exceptions, needs to be greater than the card that you are picking up. And so you're giving up something of higher value to get something of lower value. And so your choices on the board, there's no like blocking in the game. You're not blocking anyone except for that element of value comparison. Really, really cool mechanism. If you haven't played Gugong and you're watching this, I highly recommend checking out a video. It might be inspiring for you as a designer. And it's definitely worth playing too. It's a very solid Euro game, in my opinion. Chad says, can we get a sneak peek of your favorite mechanism in Tang Garden? I actually had three of them that I discussed in the video about Tang Garden, and one of them is related to the verticality of the game. The board has these slots, and you are slotting vertically tiles vertically into those slots, creating this elevated 3D element, and that connects to a few different mechanisms in the game that I think are really, really clever. That video will go live on Friday. Joe says, have I looked at the Castle Panic Deluxe Kickstarter? Seems a lot of people are disappointed in the offering of only the base game deluxeified. I get no, I haven't heard about that element. I guess I can see both sides there a little bit. That I mean, there's always the challenge I think for a publisher when if you're considering a big box, it's a considerable cost to put everything in one box, and it's also I feel like it's not entirely considered of people who have already bought all of those expansions. However, it's possible for a deluxe Kickstarter that's a little bit different because you're inviting people in who might be trying the game for the first time and don't have those expansions. So I can see why people might be a little disappointed in that. But I also don't think there's anything wrong in them backing the current campaign and hoping for deluxe expansions later, maybe a deluxe expansion campaign. George says, have I seen The Merchants of the Dark Road on Kickstarter now? Yes, I backed it within the first hour. It looked awesome. I love the artists. I love the designers. I love the publishing company. Yeah, it looks great. That's Merchants of the Dark Road that George mentioned here. Gerald says, what deck builders do I prefer? With deck builders, do I prefer tactical building like a card river or long-term planning building, a set like Dominion? I think I've come to greatly prefer, well, actually, no, I don't want to completely say that. So in card-based deck builders, I think I prefer the card river. I love the variety it offers. I really like that. However, in bag builders, I think it's a little bit more interesting to have to have all the options out there. Like in Cracks of Quedlinburg and Orleans. Yeah. Gerald says, and have you considered doing both in your deck builders? So yeah, I am kind of working on a deck building game. We'll see if it actually happens. But have I considered both? Yes, I am. I have considered kind of a hybrid of the two. Yeah. Although, I'm going to make a note about that because you have brought something to mind. Yeah. Yeah. Good note. Good note, Gerald. Good question. John says, how many designs that you start do I scrap or do I continue to rework until something starts to work? I scrap most of the designs that I start to work on. I mean, or not necessarily scrap them, but most of them I just brainstorm for a little bit. And I'm like, no, that's not innovative. That's not special. I'll just let that be. And maybe I make a note about it so I can come back to any part of it that was important later. But of the designs that I go really deep into, that I really start to commit to, I tend to finish them eventually. Some take longer than others. Yeah. But I would say of every 100 game ideas I have, I make one of them. Robert says that he's a desk expert. Can you show me your desk? Has nothing to do with the game on it, of course. There are photos of my desk online in places because I have a sit-stand desk that I was very happy to get. But no, I'm not going to show you a photo of my desk right now. Chuck says, is Wingspan on schedule for next month? So Chuck is referring to, I think, like the 14th reprint of Wingspan that is incoming in July. People have pre-ordered it from our website for July. And Chuck, yes, it is on track. It is on the way here via ocean freight right now. A lot of things can still happen. And don't expect it on July 1st. The entire month of July is open for us to get that fulfillment done. Timo Sepp asks, have you any plans for Stonemaier merchandise other than the t-shirts for champions? It would be great to have a mug. I don't have any plans for it. I'm not huge on, I guess, tchotchkes is one way to say it. But there are plenty of companies that make that kind of stuff using our logos. They're unofficial products, but there's like, I think you're asking for something with a Stonemaier logo on it, which no one else is authorized to make. Maybe at some point in the future if there's enough demand for it, but it would have to be like a pretty special mug, not just an ordinary mug with a logo slapped on it. Francisco says, how's the process of Automa design? That is a great question for Morton and David from Team Automa. I actually am only a multiplayer game designer and a multiplayer gamer, so I know only what Morton has talked about in terms of that design. There are a few. Okay, so if you go to our website, go to About, and then go to Staff, and click on Morton, you will see interviews that Morton has had about the Automa process. You might be really interested in seeing that. So that's About, and then Staff, and then Morton, and you'll see stuff on his page. Martin says, what will be the next Stonemaier game? We will reveal the name of that game and information about that game in July. Currently, if you go to Instagram at Jamie Stegmaier, you can see a pixelated version of what the box will look like. Francisco says, are you reprinting Wingspan? Oh yeah, we have reprinted Wingspan many times already and will continue to do so as long as there's demand for it. Junior says, can I tell us more about the Tapestry expansion? I can, but I'm not going to, not yet. I will be talking about that later this summer. Okay, I have a little reprieve in the questions here, so let me jump over to my topics real quick. There's little things I've been playing lately. I played Tang Garden over the weekend. I played Slay the Spire a little bit online. I had a great chat with the charity gamer, Chris Goodlett, who is here today. He has a blog and a podcast and a live stream. We were on the live stream under the charity gamer. Chris, feel free to post a link to that content here if you'd like, so people can find it. I also played Just One and Codenames over Zoom. I had one of my favorite clues ever that I gave for Codenames, one that I'm really actually proud of. I'm proud of this clue. I was trying to get people to guess 4 different words. One was cotton, one was undertaker, one was cell, C-E-L-L, and one was, what was the last one? Cycle. And the clue that I gave was sickle. And I gave sickle 4. And my team got 3 of them. Cycle was a bit of a stretch. I did cycle because it kind of sounds like sickle. That was a bit of a stretch, but they did get another clue that was from a previous clue that I gave. I was really happy with that clue. I also played at game night last week 6 Nymphed, which I did a video about, and Russian Railroads. I think the 6 Nymphed video, that'll come out next Tuesday. And played a lot of Russian Railroads lately on Board Game Arena. It's a fantastic game. Also played a little bit of Supernatural VR, and I did a video about boxed VR, and we also did a little bit of Beat Saber on VR. VR has been a nice outlet to be a little bit more active inside recently. I'll jump back to questions here. I think I have a few. Do I have any other? Yeah, I do have a few other small topics, but I'll get back to them in a minute. Zach says, is the designer of Codename Sand a newer designer or one that is a little more well-known in the industry? I doubt that many people have heard of this designer, yet. But they will be fairly known soon, I think, after we announce it. Chris says, what have Biddy and Walter been up to today? What were they up to today? Not much so far. Walter's been a little fussy. Biddy's mostly been sleeping under the bed. I don't think neither of them are in here right now. Yeah, pretty low key so far today. Brian says, do I bling my games, like with Meeple Source Meeples and Resources metal coins, broken token inserts? Well, a little bit, but we do make some metal coins, so I do use our metal coins for a number of the games that I play, and because we're a pretty good partner with Meeple Source, and they're a great partner for us, and really just because they're nice, they have sent me some Meeples and tokens for games that I love. Typically I do not actively bling out my games. But it's something I think I would like to do a little bit more with, like my favorite games that I know I will get to the table once every couple months. I would like to do that a little bit more. But I mean, so far, because of the coins, and not just the coins, but actually our realistic resources too, which have made their way into like my copy of Tzolk'in, I haven't needed to go externally to bling out those games. But I love Meeple Source. I love Top Shelf Gamer. Inserts are one thing that I really haven't explored. Inserts aren't something that I'm real picky about. Not that you have to be picky about them to like them, but it's just not something that I actively seek out. Cameron has a nice comment about my contributions to helping people kickstart games as well and crowdfund games. He says he'll be launching his first game in August on Kickstarter, which wouldn't have happened without my blog. I'm very excited to see that, Cameron. Please make sure to let me know about it when it goes live. Rudy says, where can I find the Stonemaier Games logo t-shirt? Well, I am wearing a Stonemaier Games t-shirt today. This is made by MeepleSource. This is one that we authorized them to make, even though it does have our trademark on it. So this is one that you can get. There's also an orange t-shirt that we make that is just for Stonemaier ambassadors. And so if you are interested in that, sign up as a Stonemaier ambassador and you will hear information actually very soon about that. We print them twice a year for Stonemaier ambassadors. Connor says, in regards to online board gaming, I'm finding that I plan on selling some of my physical copies of games now that I can play them online. What are my thoughts? Would you ever do this for some of your games? Maybe. I mean, I have discovered a few games that I enjoy playing more online than in person, but I really do miss in-person gaming. That is definitely my preferred way to play games. I find that even online, I'm much more distracted when I play games online. So that aside, my general rule for collecting and keeping games is that if I haven't played a game in a year, or I don't intend to play a game in the next year, I would rather give it to someone who will play it. So every year, and sometimes even multiple times a year, I do somewhat of a purge to get down to just one big game shelf. I do have two smaller game shelves, but I use that restriction. I look at my games and I say, I haven't played this in a year. I don't think I'm going to play it. I'll give it to someone who will. So it is possible that could happen with a game that maybe has been replaced by a digital version of it, but I'm looking at my shelf and I can't see many games that fall into that category. In fact, I think it's more likely that I will add games to my collection because I want to play them more because of my experience playing them digitally. Lee says, can I tell us if the new game is a heavy game, medium, or light? I would think that your guess there would be, based on the types of games that we publish, that it would be a medium weight game, but you'll find out in July. Ilya says, how do I find my playtesters? We find them through our Stonemaier ambassadors. So people who have signed up as Stonemaier ambassadors, and every year or so I send out, currently we have a great group of playtesters. I don't really actually need more, but I am open to more, and I want to make sure that we are open to more. And so every year or so I send out a survey, a test essentially, to our ambassadors of people who are interested in playtesting and want to see if they're a good fit. And that test, so if you're interested, sign up as a Stonemaier ambassador and you'll get that test from time to time. It is a fairly strict test, I will say, because we're looking for a specific, not type of person, but I think some people are better at providing feedback than others, basically. Organ says, do I swear my playtesters to secrecy? Do they sign an NDA? No, I hardly ever do NDAs. I don't really like NDAs. However, there is the expectation of privacy and secrecy when playtesters are playtesting our games. And we've had very few breaches of that, really. I'm surprised because a lot of different people see our games well in advance of us announcing them. And very little has leaked over the years. Ivan says, do I play auction-based games like Pay Dirt, Biblios, Klondike Rush? It's been a long time since I played Pay Dirt, but yeah, I did. I have played it. Biblios, I have played it. I haven't played Klondike Rush. I do love auction-based games, certain auction-based games, and I think I do have a video about it. I don't know if someone wants to try to find my top 10 favorite auction games. I'm pretty sure that Raw is at the top, and I also really love QE, are two of my favorites. Wayne says, with a game, do I set a limit on how many expansions you will make for each one? Not in advance. Like I don't think too much about expansions in advance because I try to put everything that I feel is important into the core game. Although in the back of my head, I do often kind of think, okay, this game will eventually benefit from an expansion. But, or not benefit from an expansion. This game has the potential to have these components expanded. It's not limited just to these components. But no, I don't set a limit up front. In the long run, though, I do want to make sure that we are respecting the budgets of the people who love those games and have some sort of a plan for it eventually. That plan usually isn't set out from the front. Like with Wingspan, we published Wingspan, and we were like, okay, let's see what happens with this. And then after it came out, or maybe it was a little bit before it came out, we said, it would be pretty cool if we made an expansion for every continent. What if we could do that? And so that is our plan for Wingspan, as an example. But for Tapestry, say, I don't have a plan for Tapestry. Tapestry could have one expansion. It could have 3. I don't know. I feel like after 3, you're kind of stretching things a little bit. Bogdan says, how did I end up with those code names for your future projects? Are they connected to the games or purely random? Oh, no, they're definitely connected to the games. They are code names that I have just created to hint and tease, but also not give anything away. Usually they're words that have multiple meanings or could lead people into different meanings. Um, and I think I've started, most of them have become four-letter words just because I think that was a coincidence at one point that happened, and I thought, okay, I'll just try to stick with that and pick four-letter words for the code names. Donnie says, do I think that play by remote type games will continue to be popular post COVID 19? Um, I think so, Donnie. I think, like for me, for example, I honestly I didn't really look at Board Game Arena before COVID. I wasn't all that interested in it. But now it's kind of nice that every now and then on our game nights I can play games, substantial games, medium weight Euro games on Board Game Arena, and with people who are not in St. Louis. I love playing with my friends in St. Louis, but it's pretty cool to be able to play with a friend in Minnesota, with a friend in Louisiana, a friend in Illinois at those game nights. So I think I will continue to do so after COVID. And so that's just my experience, but I'm guessing that some people will find that as well. Just a guess. Carol says, have I checked out Viticulture Digital this week? We've enjoyed being able to play it throughout the day. That's great. Yeah, oh yeah, this is a major announcement. Carol, I'm glad you brought that to my attention. I totally forgot that from my list. But yes, Viticulture Digital is now available on iOS and Android. It's released by Digidiced, a company that I've been wanting to work with for a long time. A great digital company for board game ports. And I'm sure there are a few bugs. They've been beta testing it for a long time. As always with the release, there are going to be a few bugs. But for those of you who have the patience to get past those bugs, I've heard great things about it. I haven't played it myself, but I've heard great things about the digital version, and the Steam version will be coming next week. I'll probably be playing it on Steam. I'm kind of waiting for that version. Yeah, so I'm waiting for the Steam version next week to start playing it. But for those of you who are already playing it, you can play against the AI, you can play against friends. It is a full digital version of Viticulture. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. William says, have I played Maracaibo yet? I have played Maracaibo. Yeah, I have a video about Maracaibo. Really cool game. I love the different paths, the ocean path and the exploration path, and the use of the cards. A lot of icons on those cards, but once you're able to get past that, I was really impressed by the game. I love Alexander Pfister. He's one of my favorite designers. Daniel says, have I considered designing a social deduction game? I love your designs and would love to see your take on my favorite genre. Thank you, Daniel. Yeah, so I have tried. I will say I have tried. The one big issue that I found is that it doesn't quite fit into, like, I love the design challenge, but it doesn't quite fit into what Stonemaier Games does, because we typically design games that can be played with as few as 1 or 2 players and then as many as 5, 6, 7 players. But it's that 1 and 2 that's pretty tough for a social deduction game. There aren't too many games in that genre that can be played at 2. Although, prove me wrong. Post some examples in the comments so I can see them. That's the major challenge, though. Yeah. Cody says, have I seen any trends in comments from your playtesters over time? For example, maybe there was a certain mechanism or action that was bothersome to playtesters that isn't anymore, even though it is still present in games you are designing and publishing. That's a good question, Cody. I don't know. Like, I see trends, and I try to detect trends and patterns within each playtest, but I don't know if I see all that many over time. I would say the one thing that I see from time to time is that my kind of rule of thumb is that if there's a card with text on it that you need to read to understand the card and cannot be replaced by icons, I don't like having a card river for that card. Because I think it's kind of tough to see from across the table. You're asking players to see something really far away that they can't read. And so that is something I've broken a little bit at times. Like with Wingspan, we kind of broke that with Wingspan. There are cards in the middle of the table with text. There's also icons that you can use to decide if that's a good fit for you. And you can actually physically pick up the tray. And we designed the tray to make it easy to pick up the cards. But, it is something that I generally try to avoid. But playtesters do comment a lot about that, about the random draw. A lot of playtesters often prefer the idea of drawing 2 cards and picking 1. I think that slows the game down too much to do that. So I don't love that. I love finding other methods for that. But that's maybe the one consistent thing that I've seen us get feedback about that I have pushed back about to a certain extent. Gerald says, would I ever publish a game as heavy as Terra Mystica or Gaia Project? Maybe Terra Mystica, probably not Gaia Project though. Yeah. Eric, actually, as I'm talking about poor sight and poor difficulty seeing cards from across the table, Eric says right here, my problem with deck building is my poor sight. And yeah, that is a challenge. If you have a card row that you need to read from across the table, that's a pretty big challenge with it. So I am trying to address that with my deck building game. Jay says, are there any games that you went in with low expectations and left very pleased and impressed? Yes, I'm sure there are. Let me see if there's any in this year in particular, because I have been compiling a list of games to consider for my favorite games of 2020. Let's see if there's any that fall into that category. Watergate, actually, I had pretty low expectations for Watergate, but I loved it. I knew nothing about In the Hall of the Mountain King, but ended up loving it. Same for Flotilla, knew nothing about it, ended up loving it. Glenmore 2. I was pretty sure I would like it, but I had fairly low expectations, and I really, really love that game. Hierarchy is another one. I knew nothing about Hierarchy, but I loved my plays of it. I need to get that back to the table. And Shards of Infinity, honestly, I'd read about the game. I was like, yeah, another deck builder, but I have absolutely loved Shards of Infinity. That one and Glenmore, I think, have the potential of getting into my overall top 10 period list of games. Yeah. Tony says, I believe you stated previously that you like alternative timeline stories. Yeah, I do. He says, have I watched The Man in the High Castle? I've not. That's on Amazon Prime, right? I have not watched it. Would you recommend that, though? Tony says, what's your favorite alternate timeline movie or show? I was just talking about one the other day. Fairly recently, Watchmen. Watchmen was fantastic, absolutely fantastic, and it's self-contained. It's 9 episodes. That's it. You're done. I highly, especially in this moment right now, I highly recommend Watchmen. That would definitely be up there on my list. And I'm not talking about the movie. I'm talking about the HBO series. Although it does help if you watch the movie. They're two completely different things. There's the movie, and then it's as if there's a big jump in time, or there is a big jump in time, and then the show takes place. Chad says, while playing Tzolk'in, I have noticed that the game feels a little slow from turn to turn. He says, I think this is because I'm used to doing an action and immediately getting a benefit from the action. While in Tzolk'in, you need to do 2 actions to get the benefit from your actions. In Tzolk'in, on your turn, you were either placing workers or you are retrieving workers. Chad says, you obviously don't mind this, but have you noticed this? If so, why don't you mind? I think it's because the turns where you're placing are so simple. They're so simple and short. You're just placing workers, and very quickly after that, depending on your player count and how fast the other players are, you are then getting workers back and getting stuff from them. So because the turns are so quick and snappy, I'm not bothered by that. But you're right, there are turns where all you are doing is placing and paying and not getting any benefit. But actually, it does still feel good in those cases to reserve your spot. You're gaining a spot that maybe wouldn't have otherwise been available or won't be available in a minute. Nathan says, has there ever been a time you have regretted making a component one way instead of another way? Absolutely, yes. Yeah, I'll give a few examples. One was in the very first print run of Viticulture, which only, I think, 2,500 people own. Maybe even less than that. I might have that number wrong. In that original version of Viticulture, I made the player mats thinner than they should have been. And also thicker than they should have been. I made them 1 millimeter thick, which is like the worst thickness for a player mat because it's so thin that it just feels flimsy and it bends, it warps really easily. If it's thinner, if you do something thinner like we did with Tapestry, if it's thin like that, warping isn't even an issue because it's so easy to just bend. It's completely pliable. Or if you go up to 1.5 or 2, it can still warp, but it feels much more substantial. The other thing was with Scythe. As much as I love the dual layered player mats in Scythe, and I love the wooden nature of the tokens and the meeples, they do present a problem because with wood, you will end up with very slight variations in the meeples in terms of width at times causing some of them not to fit. So eventually we had to revise the Scythe player mats and add extra space, more space than was necessary for the meeples in particular, and also the cubes, so that everything would be guaranteed to fit despite those variations. So in hindsight, maybe I would have considered making those components in plastic, because plastic doesn't have those same variations typically. But I do still love the wood, so I think maybe up front I just would have made that extra space in there. Paul says, what did I think of Tang Garden? I loved it enough to have 3 completely different favorite mechanisms about it, and I'll be talking about them in my video on Friday. And speaking of which, I'm glad you mentioned that, Paul, because I haven't mentioned that my last week video, my Sunday sit-down video from this past week, was Alan's top 10 favorite games. Alan Stone. Alan is my co-founder of Stonemaier Games. So that was really fun to do his top 10 favorite list. I'm the one talking about it. Alan doesn't love being on camera, but I talk about his list. And our Panda project manager, so our manufacturing project manager that works a lot with Stonemaier Games, wonderful guy named Shannon. He has given us his top 10 list as well. And his birthday was on Monday, so happy birthday to Shannon. And I'm doing his top 10 list for this week's Sunday Sit-Down video. So you'll get to see someone who works at Panda, our major manufacturer, to see what games he loves. Also, a little further back, my mom's birthday was last week, so I did post a blog post on my personal blog about that, but I wanted to wish my mom happy birthday on air as well. Noah says, have I played the PC game Tharsis? No, I haven't heard of Tharsis. He says it has the feel of a dice rolling strategy game, but I'm not sure of what it does, if what it does is accomplishable in physical form. I will make a note of that, but no, I haven't heard of that, no. Jake says, any clues on when Wingspan Oceania will come out? It's the only thing that's keeping me going. I hope there's more than that keeping you going, Jake. But the current schedule looks like hopefully in the tail end of 2020. It might bump into 2021, but I think end of 2020. Let's see. Just scrolling down for questions as usual. I think have I covered all my topics? I think I actually have. Oh, a random show I've been watching that we just finished watching is Dead to Me. I highly recommend it. Had a lot of fun watching that show, and it's a show about a great friendship between 2 women who have struggled a little bit with grief in their recent history. It's a very genuine, loving friendship. It's wonderful to see it on the screen on Netflix, and very funny as well. Lots of great moments of comedy. And now we are back to watching Succession Season 2, which is almost the exact opposite. There's very little love in Succession, but it is interesting to watch the business and inter-family relationships in Succession. I recommend both of them, but for very different reasons. Kim says, our 4.5-year-old loves My Little Scythe. Any suggestions on what we should introduce her to next? First, I would start with the expansion to My Little Scythe, if you're not there yet. And after that, I love playing Haba games with my niece and nephew, or nieces and nephews at this point. There are several of them. Haba games one of the first ones I played with them was Animal Upon Animal, which might be a little light if your daughter is already playing, or daughter or son, I don't know, is already playing My Little Scythe. But Haba game, what are some other Haba games that I like? I really do like Animal Upon Animal. I would also recommend some cooperative games. I know my nephew really loves Flashpoint. He loves the excitement of Flashpoint. Cooperative games are an easy way for you to kind of, you're helping everyone along, even though your 4.5-year-old might not be able to read yet. So cooperative games like that. I've heard that most people start with Forbidden Island. I heavily prefer Forbidden Desert. So you might try Forbidden Desert. But I've heard that the island does work a little bit for the younger folks. Ivan says, I've heard you say that I play Slay the Spire, and he suggests that I play Monster Train. I have heard, I've actually been watching a lot of videos about that. Some friends have recommended that recently, just a very recent release, I think. I'm still learning a lot from Slay the Spire that I'm applying to my deck building game. So I hope to try Monster Train, but right now I'm just playing a little bit of Slay the Spire from time to time. Sarah says, have I played Sorcerer City? She says it's jumped into her top 10, maybe even top 5. No, wow, that's awesome. I haven't played it, but I definitely need to. Jason says, with more board gamers exposed to online platforms like Tabletop Simulator, Tabletopia, and Board Game Arena, am I excited by the opportunities that it creates for publishers or worried that it will cannibalize the traditional business? No, I'm not worried at all about how digital games will. I don't think they will cannibalize. I think, if anything, they get people excited to play the tabletop version while providing an outlet for you to play those games remotely when it's not possible to play in person. Wayne says, have I ever thought about doing an expansion in games based around holidays like Halloween and Christmas? Not exactly, but we have seen some fun fan-created stuff in those realms. Like Hobie, the designer of My Little Scythe, he has created some fun holiday-themed factions for Scythe that we've posted on our website on the Scythe FAQ that are pretty cool. Brian says, what's my favorite roll and write game? I do have a video about this too, Brian. I think in the video it came down to a very close call between On Tour and Cartographers. And at this point, I think at the time On Tour won out over Cartographers. I think at this point Cartographers is probably on top of On Tour. Brian says that he loves Fleet Dice, which I really need to play. Welcome to Cartographers and Silver and Gold. I had not played Silver and Gold when I filmed that video, but it would have been on that list. It should have been on that list. David says, do I have any plans to give some Stonemaier board games to Board Game Arena? David, I would love to. I have contacted Board Game Arena about it, but more importantly, I've contacted the digital developers who have the digital rights to our games to see if they will give us permission to do that. And so far, the reaction's been a little mixed. Most of them have given us timing contingencies based on when they would be comfortable with us doing that. Cameron says, have I played The Estates? It's got a super interesting auction mechanism. I have, yeah. I have an older video, probably 3 or 4 years old about, maybe not that old, maybe 2 years old, about The Estates. Yeah, it's a cool auction game. I believe my favorite mechanism is that all the money in the game is in your hand or with players from the beginning. It's a closed economy, which I think is pretty cool. Mose says, do I pay your playtesters, and can they be from all around the world? Yes, our playtesters are from all around the world, and we pay our lead playtesters. So the person that I reach out to, my contact, yeah, I pay them for their time. Yeah. Jake says, have I seen this recent Dice Tower video? No, I haven't. This was mentioned earlier in reference to Eric Lang and Tom Vassell having a chat. And I will queue it up so that I can watch it. Yeah. Thank you for recommending that. Lee says, have I also played, she says, I liked Sulkin, or you like Sulkin, she's referring to me. Have I also played Teotihuacan, the City of Gods, and what do I think about the game? I have. Yeah, I played it in person once, and I did a video about it. Featuring my favorite mechanism in it, which I can't remember what it is right now. I couldn't help but compare it to Sulkin, and I love Sulkin so much that I haven't returned it to Huacan. I also don't like that you can't pronounce it very easily, but I think it's a very solid game. I just happen to prefer Sulkin and want to play Sulkin all the time. Let's see, just scrolling down for a few more questions before we wrap up today. Cody mentions Coup as a social deduction game that plays at 2 players. You're right. Coup does play with 2 players. Wayne mentioned Hide and Seek is another example of that. Joshua says, any updates on the Tapestry expansion? Any hints? No, right now we're kind of focusing on hints and soon in July an announcement about our new game in 2020. Tapestry expansion will come after that. Mario says that he did not like his first play of Scythe, and now it's his favorite game. He says, do I remember any game that I had a big swing in opinion one way or the other? And yes, the example that I think of when I'm asked that question is always the Castles of Burgundy. My first play of it, I was like, I do not get this. I can see there's some good stuff here, but I'm not going to return to it. And then I returned to it a couple years later and really, really liked it. Yeah. Lees mentions a game called Inhuman Conditions, a 2-player deduction game. I think I've heard good things about that one. Sarah says, with Father's Day coming up, what would be your suggestions for a gamer dad who has a huge game collection? This might be tying into an earlier question. That might be a chance to look at maybe your dad's top 3 favorite games and give him an enhancement for one of them, like metal coins if it doesn't have metal coins, or special resources or special tokens for it, special insert, something to make a game that he already loves even better. Lisa recommends Man in the High Castle. Oh, a lot of people, Eric does as well, recommends it. And Brenda makes a good point about Watchmen. The original graphic novel, I agree, the graphic novel is a better lead-in for the show than the movie, especially since the movie takes place in the modern day, whereas it kind of should have taken place in the 80s, especially as it relates to the TV show, the HBO series. A few comments about that, actually. Cody says, I asked this last week, too close to the end of the live stream. Maybe I'm in the same boat again. He says, you've mentioned that sending games to reviewers is a part of our marketing strategy, which it is. Do you do this for reviewers who review games in any language other than English? We do. Yeah. There are a number. If you look through like any of our review pages on our website, you can see where I've put in parentheses the language that they used if it is a non-English language. However, typically, if it is a game that is published in that language, I typically leave it to our localization partner to provide those review copies, not us to provide the English copy. Yeah. Gil says, do I think of making a game on a favorite book? Yeah, I have thought about making games based on some of my favorite books that I've read. Yeah. Mitch says, am I live every Tuesday at 10 a.m.? No, every Wednesday. Today is Wednesday, Mitch. I'm live every, did I say Tuesday? Yeah, I'm live every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Central Time, St. Louis time. Chad says, which game component that Stonemaier Games has made am I most proud of? Which game component am I most proud of? That is a tough question because I try to have some pretty cool components in every game. That is a tough question, Chad, because I'm thinking of like my favorite components in each of our games. I should probably do a top 10 about that at some point once we have 10 games. My favorite component in Stonemaier component. I'm making a note about that. I'll mention one. I'll pick a game off the top of my head. I'll say My Little Scythe. My favorite component in My Little Scythe, probably the insert, actually. I think the insert is really, really nice in My Little Scythe. And that was designed by Game Trays, not by us. Ephraim says, Seven Wonders Duel or Watergate? Ooh, Seven Wonders Duel just slightly because I think Megan prefers that one to Watergate, but it would be very close for me. Kemet or Innis or Cyclades? Kemet. Co-op or competitive? Competitive with most people, cooperative with Megan. Wavelength or telestration, sleeves or no sleeves, no sleeves. I like the rapid fire questions. Thong says, have I played Metro X, which is their favorite roll and write? I have not played Metro X, no, but I'll write that down. I'll make a note about that. I haven't heard of Metro X. Mitch says, when are we going to get a movie based on Scythe? I'm still hoping it'll happen someday. I only have the tabletop rights to Scythe. I am not. I don't have the other rights, but I'm hoping that someday Jakob does that. I will definitely be there to watch it and support it. Pete says that I should try Teotihuacan again. And you're right. I should give it another chance. Really nothing against the game at all. I just love Silken so much that I generally go to that. But you're right. I should give it another shot. And maybe on Board Game Arena. Yeah. John says, what's my favorite Shem Phillips game? Probably Architects of the West Kingdom. Up there also are Paladins and Raiders, but I think Architects takes it slightly for me. And looks like we reached the end of the comments right at 11 a.m. That's perfect timing. So I'm going to put this video up on YouTube, and YouTube is much better at alerting me to new comments than Facebook Live after the fact. So if you have any questions that come up after this, or you're watching this not live, hop on over to YouTube if you want me to answer your question and post it in the comments there, and I'm happy to answer. Other than that, have a great Wednesday. Have a happy, safe Wednesday, and I will see you next Wednesday at 10 a.m. And thanks to anyone who posted links in the comments here, including Cody, who's always really great about that. All right, take care. Bye.